Hey everybody, it's me Hannah with SoloSuit, and one of the most common questions that we get at SoloSuit is how do I prepare for my court hearing or trial? In this video, I interview a real attorney named Sarah Wolk, and we go over some of the best ways that you can prepare for your court date and defend yourself in court. So if you've been sued and you've got a court hearing or trial coming up, check out this video. I hope that it helps. Thanks so much for watching. When you get sued and you have like a hearing or a trial, what actually happens in court? Like, what is the physical process when you show up at the courthouse? What actually happens?
Yeah, so this is definitely something that our clients even worry about when we're going and they just want to go and observe. Court can be kind of a scary place, but something to remember is that everyone there is a person. The judges are people. So although you want to be very respectful and polite and formal in some ways, you also need to remember that you're going to just have a conversation with the judge is essentially what's going to happen. So from step one, you get to the courthouse, you go to the courtroom. If you don't know what courtroom you're in, you want to look at the paperwork in your case, and it should be on the first page of a lot of the documents. It's going to say the judge's name and usually either the department or courtroom division. Sometimes, depending on the county, those courtrooms are called different things, county and even city sometimes. So you get there and then you want to check in. The judge, ideally you get there before the hearing starts. And so the judge is not actually in the courtroom yet. There's going to be a docket somewhere most likely, and the docket is a list of the cases that are being heard that day. And you want to find your case on that list. It's going to have a number associated with it, meaning generally the number in which the court is going to call the cases. So like number one is going to be called first by the judge. Number two is going to be called first, but the judge can go out of order as well. So you check in by saying who you are, defendant, your name. So defendant, Sarah Wolk, and then your case number two. Defendant Sarah Wolk, case number 2. And the clerk of the court is usually going to be the one checking people in. Once you're checked in, then you just wait. You wait for the judge to actually take the bench. Once the judge takes the bench, the judge is in control of the courtroom. So you should not be talking. You should be listening to what the judge says, listening to the judge's instructions. When your case is called, then you go up to the table that's close to the judge's actual bench. You can also appear remotely a lot of times these days. So if you're remote, then you don't actually have to go anywhere. The next thing is to introduce yourself to the judge. So you're gonna again say your party and name, and so defendant Sarah Wolk, for example. The other side, the plaintiff, is usually going to go first, and then you go second. From there, the judge is pretty much going to lead the way. So the judge might ask each side for certain information, and if the judge asks you for information, you want to try and respond. You want to address the judge by your honor. That's the polite and formal way to address the judge in your case. And you want to also remember to speak up. If there's something that happens or something you don't understand, it's okay to ask questions. You just want to wait for your turn. You don't want to interrupt other people or talk over other people. So once the case has kind of gone through whatever process it's going to, each side argues or the judge asks the questions, the judge will give some sort of ruling. Even if it's not a motion hearing, there is a ruling. So this could be the setting of a trial date. That would be considered a ruling. So you want to make sure you hear what the judge says, the information the judge actually confirms in the case. And from there, the judge might order someone to actually give notice of that ruling, meaning sending a written document to the other people in the case of what happened. And then your case is over. Usually you want to say, thank you, Your Honor, and leave.
Okay, so just a little recap. I was taking notes while you were talking. So you get to the courthouse, you go to the courtroom, that should be listed on your court documents that you received. You check in, and then you wait for the judge to come in. He or she might be in charge of several other cases that day as well. When they call your case, you approach the judge's bench, I think is what it's called. You approach the bench, right? And then the judge will lead a conversation between you and the debt collector or the creditor that's suing you or their attorneys. And during that conversation, don't be afraid to speak up and ask questions. Don't interrupt anyone, and be sure to address the judge as Your Honor. And then lastly, the judge will give a ruling, whether that's scheduling another trial or maybe making a firm decision in the case and entering a judgment. Is that right?
Yes, that's a great summary.
Okay, awesome. So I guess with that in mind then, what do you think are some good ways that someone who might be representing themselves in court could prepare for their court date?
So one thing that I think is the best advice I was ever given as a new attorney was know the facts. If you know the facts of the case, you know what's going on, you can almost always have a meaningful discussion with the judge. You know, you're not an attorney. The judge knows that. I mean, assuming you're not an attorney, the judge knows that. That doesn't mean you can get away with whatever you want, but the judge isn't going to expect you to have the same level of legal knowledge as an attorney. But if you understand, you know, you filed this document, on the other side filed this document, and the complaint says this. The complaint says, this contract existed, I did this, I borrowed this money, I didn't pay this money back, and you know that information, then you can follow along with a lot of what's going on, and you can also answer questions. And that goes a really, really long way. And that's what you can do as someone who's not an attorney. You can know the facts of the case and know what's going on. So that's the number one thing I would say to do. I would also make sure you do read all of the documents that the court gives you, because there is additional information in there about what is going to happen at certain hearings or trial and things that need to be filed beforehand as well. So certain hearings actually do require you to file something, even if the court set them. So for example, a case management conference, sometimes also called a trial sitting conference, depending on what county you're in, is basically like a status conference, and the judge is going to want to get information. But you also have to file something submitting some information to the court beforehand. So the judge has an opportunity to kind of read this information if they want to, and be a little bit more prepared for maybe what questions they want to follow up on with you at trial. So if there are documents that are required, you want to make sure you file those. You can actually be fined if you don't follow court rules. So that's something else to remember. From there, if you are going to something where there are going to be witnesses or evidence presented, then you also want to make sure you prepare your questions to ask witnesses and know what documents you're going to actually enter into evidence. But that's generally going to be just a trial. There's some exceptions to that, but for the initial hearings, you don't need to do that kind of preparation.
I really hope that this video was useful, and if you've been sued for debt, I hope you know you're not alone. SoloSuit is rooting for you, and that is why we share conversations like the one I just had with Sarah. It's to help individuals know how to resolve disputes and resolve debts. So if you have any other questions or you want more information, please reach out to us at support@solosuit.com or check out our website. As always, thanks so much for watching, and good luck with resolving your case.